Thinking on your feet is having the confidence to say the first thing that comes to your mind. It's not this game of genius level invention. It's pure recall. Or maybe you have a half-baked idea that you want to throw out there, and having the confidence to say that.
Hey, I'm Nick Armstrong, and this is the Founded in FoCo podcast. Every episode, we get a chance to talk to an innovative mover and shaker doing cool things in our community. And today, we are here with Gus. Gus, introduce yourself and welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Nick. Hi, everybody. I'm Gus. I run a company called Improvisational Thinking. And what that is a company that uses or teaches soft skills and organic communication workshops relying on the principles of improv.
A lot of folks know the idea of like improv is like yes and that's like a pretty common lexicon, and maybe no but. And so tell me how what something that we traditionally associate with maybe like Saturday Night Live or like Amy Poehler and Second City, all those cool Chicago kids. Tell me about how that applies in a business setting.
Yeah, Nick, I think you actually know more than most people. So even when I say improv, people think stand-up comedy, which I do not teach people how to be funny. Instead, what I do is teach people how to be good improvisers. And I call this improv's PR problem, whereby people hear the word improv and their mind immediately jumps to comedy. Maybe it's Second City, maybe it's Amy Poehler, maybe it's Whose Line Is It Anyway? But improv is just a means to achieve comedy in a theatrical form. There are other great improvisers out there that are very much not comedians. You think great chefs, they have to improvise. Business leaders of innovative companies, the Navy SEALs, all of these folks are incredible improvisers, but they are not incredible improv comedians. So when you go and see improv comedy or a chef at the top of their game, what you're seeing is someone who is listening actively. You're seeing someone who is making creative choices on the spot. You see someone who has the confidence to act on their gut. And that is what I bring and sort of try to foster using the principles of improv.
It's such a freeing thing to be able to be nimble on your feet too, because if you can get any sort of input in, you don't have to worry about what will come out of your mouth after you get some things that's surprising, right? So you've talked about a couple of areas where this is applicable. Do you have a visceral demonstration of something that an improv principle could help a business owner with?
Sure thing. I think, and that's a little bit about what the workshop is going to be, is when people say, how can I get better at soft skills? The number one answer is read a book. So Nick, if you asked me, how do I get better at negotiation? Someone might say, well, you should read Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. But I think that's only one part of the equation because, yeah, you can read it. You can learn about the low DJ voice and all these other tactics that he explains in this book. But you don't get to practice them. And you do not want to be practicing negotiation when you're asking for a raise, when you're negotiating an employee's salary, when you're trying to get the most out of a deal. You want to practice these soft skills in a space where there are no stakes, where failure is okay, where there's an opportunity to make bold choices that might not work. But in an improv context, that's where you want to practice negotiation so that you can perform negotiation in an effective way when it really matters.
Yeah, this goes beyond active listening skill and more into role playing, figuring out how to play off of your opponent in a particular way, and maybe not even seeing them as an opponent in that negotiation, but also as a partner, a co-creator of a conversation that you are maybe hoping has a particular outcome, but it will go in whatever general direction. And if there's a good partnership there, then the flow will be established into that positive direction, right?
Precisely. And the session itself is going to be it's not going to be about negotiation, but it's going to be about those higher level concepts. How do you become adaptable? There is going to be a little bit of active listening practice. And then there's also going to be a little bit of facilitation. How do you bring adaptability, facilitation to the forefront? How do you practice these soft skills in an applicable way, as opposed to just reading the newest Forbes article?
Yeah, and as you said, that's such a passive modality for ingesting a new skill. Just as you wouldn't like hear a teacher say a particular thing and immediately be able to apply it in your life, you want to be able to leverage safe spaces to practice these skills. It strikes me that like D&D is probably like the place where a lot of folks learned their early improv and ability to sort of roll with the punches, because everyone goes in hoping for a nat 20 on their 20-sided die, but the instant success for those of you non-nerds out there. But anything less than an instant 20, an instant success roll, and you sort of have to make it up on the spot, like, oh no, what am I going to do next? And I think anyone who's done a DIY project that has gone just slightly off the rails understands this concept of, you might have wanted to call the plumber and that would have been a great idea like 20 minutes ago, but currently your bathroom is flooding and now you need to do something. So when I understand that there is a huge benefit to this. What does the development of a safe space for business owners or small business owners or even a freelancer look like in terms of developing the safe space for themselves?
Yeah, so safe space, I like to use the term nurturing space because safe space has a little bit of a connotation nowadays. So, a nurturing space, especially with your employees or for yourself, there's this huge movement around radical candor. Good ideas can come from anywhere. It doesn't need to just be from the C-suite down. There's a huge movement of sort of like ideas bubbling up to the top. But that only can happen if you've created a nurturing space throughout your organization. And sometimes that looks like, as the leader, you need to say, hey, look, no one's going to get fired for what you say in the next 5, 10, 15 minutes. Or you have to be the one to say, there's a exercise I like called reverse brainstorming that sort of lets people crack open their heads and get creative and have that ability to participate in a nurturing space where instead of saying, okay, give me your best idea on how to grow our newsletters conversion rate, what you say is, okay, give me an idea on how we can make our newsletter conversion rate worse. I'll start. We can kill all of our readers. And now you've just opened the floodgates to, oh, okay, are we really going to be flexing our creative muscles in this meeting? And we're allowed to go that far? Being someone who can lead the nurturing space in a way that is gracious and make people feel safe is going to give you that sort of idea generation, that co-creation, and let your people buy in to what you're trying to do.
So let's say you don't have a larger business, you don't have employees, you don't have coworkers that you can play off of. For a freelancer or a solopreneur, what would that process look like?
So that process, this is what I like to say, as far as thinking on your feet goes, because that's what I find a lot of solopreneurs are looking for. They get kind of caught off in conversations. Thinking on your feet is having the confidence to say the first thing that comes to your mind. It's not this game of genius level invention. It's pure recall. Or maybe you have a half-baked idea that you want to throw out there and having the confidence to say that. So creating that space for yourself, whether it's a nice, my desk is a mess right now, but sometimes I set it up to be sort of a calming environment for me. Have pictures on it reflecting sort of the moments and the people I like working with. But creating that space for yourself where you feel, okay, we have worked together before, we've co-created, and I have the confidence to say the first thing that comes to mind, even if maybe it's a little silly or maybe it's not, a silver bullet.
Does AI have a role in facilitating? If you don't have a partner to play against, is there a way to facilitate with AI?
Not at this moment, I don't think. Because as I understand AI right now, there's a lot of chatbots going around. And even what I call, brain to finger speed. If you have a words per minute of infinite and you can immediately insert your ideas into the computer and circumvent the critical sort of inner judge in your brain, go for it. But I think we need to get to a space with AI where you have something that you can speak into a microphone, they can interpret quickly, the processing happens, and then they spit it back out at you, where it does feel like a real conversation. And I don't think we're there yet, but I think down the line there is definitely an avenue for building that for yourself.
I think we've all been there with Siri, the frustration of like, this is not what I, my automated assistant doesn't understand me and lives in my pocket.
Yeah.
Uh, where do you see folks needing improv the most in business setting?
It depends on the level. So I find um, kind of higher up in the organization, C-suite or your chief leaders, they like to use improv as a way to humanize themselves, as a way to sort of not appear so scary to their subordinates, as well as help use improv to adapt when maybe their keynote speech isn't going so well. I think on a managerial level, it's to help manage teams and learn how to foster a nurturing environment that promotes team cohesion. And then on an IC level, an individual contributor level, you are actively participating and growing on a team as you're co-creating, and you feel the confidence to say the first thing that comes to your mind. Granted, active listening, spontaneity, being willing and open to listen to other ideas from any level of the organization is useful all across the organization. But those three levels, I see very different, distinct needs.
Is there an element where improv may not be applicable or appropriate?
Yes, I would say so. Listen, I think improv is the answer to a lot of things, but I do not think it's the answer to everything. There are times when you need to take the time to engage stakeholders. And if you're making huge, pivotal, multi-year impact decisions, maybe you don't want to make those on the fly, but you could still use the active listening and synthesizer capability it affords you. I just wouldn't say, don't base a 25-year plan around a quick little interaction.
Why not?
Well, I guess if you're super adaptable, you can, and you say, you know what, let's go.
we're just going to build machines and factories. So tell me, how did you get started in the world of improv? What led you to apply improv principles to business, or vice versa, that you were in a business situation and applied improv principles and saw that it was super fruitful?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B, where I've been doing improv for about 11 years. And listen, I went to, no joke, the #1 rated high school in America, the North Carolina School of Science and Math. I got a 4.0 getting dual engineering degrees from North Carolina State University. I worked as, the tech lead of an innovative intrapreneurial team at a Fortune 3,000 company. And I looked around at all my peers who had that level of technical merit, and they were still sort of like hunched over their soldering irons, putting resistors in place on printed circuit boards, whereas I'm leading this innovative team. And these folks had technical merit beyond my capacity. So it took me a little bit to sort of think back and say, wait a minute, I have been training my active listening, adaptability, communicating with empathy, adapting to new requirements. I've been training my soft skills through this art form that I had previously just viewed for comedy. And that realization came because I started a improv meetup in North Carolina, and I grew that from 0 to 350 members. And over the course of its 18-month existence, I saw people come in with the intent to be funny and leave as better husbands and wives, better employees, better leaders, better parents, better sons and daughters. And it took me a while to make the connection that, improv is being applied to their lives as I am at the same time applying it to my own professional career. So I figured if I've changed all these people's lives and made them better communicators as well as my own, 2 hours a week, why not try and do it for 40 hours a week and see how many people I can impact with this?
Those aha moments don't often like, is it from a book or a podcast or other things like that? Just every so often we'll just see a thing that it comes across to us. And mine was Brennan Lee Mulligan, who runs Dimension 20. And he said he had this interview with his mom, who's this amazing science fiction writer. She says, we've got to propitiate the monsters, like bring them over to your side, and they make them much less scary. If you humanize the demons that you've created in your own mind, they become much less scary to interact with in that way. And it strikes me when I heard that, I was like, wait a minute. If you applied that to everything that was happening in your own life, like whether it was I'm too scared to do my taxes, or I'm scared to get up in front of people and speak, or I'm afraid to, ham fist this negotiation, or whatever it is, propitiating those particular monsters in your mind makes them a lot less scary. And those skills then can become easier to you, whereas they maybe have been inaccessible before.
Mm.
Is that, did you have business folks show up? And as you said, they walked out better husbands, better business partners, or whatever else. Did you have business people show up and connect the dots that quickly? Or were they like super frustrated that maybe they didn't get the funny that they were hoping for, and they kind of walked out with like, what is this?
Yeah, it morphed and evolved over the course of time, where it's up to me as a facilitator to set those expectations from the start. And that came with practice. But I did have, I had in my meetup, I had everybody from a 17-year-old high school senior who wanted to get better at college interviews to a 77-year-old ex-European hoteling exec come in and just say, I want to get better at interacting with people. I don't think I was the best exec. How do I continue to build that skill? And there were some people who were upset that they weren't funny, but the comedy and improv comedy honestly comes from honesty. The more honest you are in an improv comedy scene, as crazy as this sounds, the more relatable and more humorous it's going to be.
Who are you hoping shows up for your session? Because I imagine that there are folks that will want to like, oh, I see the improv, I maybe will want to make it funny, but who are you hoping most shows up in the room?
The folks I want to show up in the room are either folks who want to learn an applicable way to build their soft skills, specifically adaptability, co-creation, and active listening. That's going to be mainly the focus. B, folks who have always wanted to try improv, but never wanted to shell out upwards of $250 and 18 hours a month to learn how to be a comedian. You want to be surrounded by business leaders and like-minded folks to achieve a soft skills goal. And then C, I would say if you're scared of this session, you should come to this session. It's my job to make you feel welcome. I promise it won't be scary. No one is going to be singled out to give their tight five on the political climate. It's going to be very open and welcoming, and I do my best. The first thing I say to everybody is, you have already done the hardest thing when you show up to the workshop. You had so many opportunities to not come and blame it on the weather or traffic or God knows what. You already do the hardest thing when you step into that room, and it's my job to make the rest of it easy for you.
There's this principle of like the honesty hangover, the like, so you walk in, you put yourself out there. What do you tell folks who have gone through like an improv program, or have that, like they come in with that weight on their shoulders of like, oh, I have to be present and in this moment, and then how do you teach the recovery for folks from that radical honesty or radical candor, as you put it?
I don't think I've experienced that in one of these 90-minute sessions, but I know when you are performing it to a huge audience and you feel like, wow, I really bared my soul in front of 90 people. That's where I found that sort of honesty. What do you call it? An honesty hangover, a vulnerability hangover comes in. And I do my best in these sessions to structure it such that there's almost no audience. Everyone's operating in their own little groups of 3 or 2, but they're running the exercise just the same, because this is not about performance. This is purely based on building soft skills in a private, nurturing environment.
Have you had any sort of super success stories or things in even in your personal life that you want to share about improv as a skill and where it had benefited you?
Sure. So, in addition to, this young guy out of college at 26 running an innovation program at a Fortune 3000, I think beyond that, success stories to me are when people made that leap, when it's like, oh, this is not about comedy. This is about feeling comfortable with myself and connecting with others and becoming adaptable. And a success story to me is if you leave a workshop or you read one of my blog articles and then you take a bona fide improv class, either if it's through me, if it's through some theater, UCB, Second City, whatever, if you make that leap where you say, I'm going to approach this as a soft skills building tool, and it's not as scary, and it does have a PR problem, but that's a success story to me, is someone really taking ownership of their improv experience and sharing it with others.
Gus, where can we find out more about you and your business and what you have to offer?
Sure. So you can find it at gusvieweg.com. That's GUSVIEWEG.com. And on my LinkedIn, I blog a lot about the application of improv and its PR crisis and what the soft skills you can gain from it are.
Thank you so much for joining me today. And I appreciate the insights into the improv world. And hopefully we can fix that PR problem. And you can join in on this entire process at Founded in FoCo March 4th through 8th at the Fort Collins Senior Center. And then we have workshop days where Gus will be walking you through how to do some improv, which is honestly one of the most important skills that I've learned in my business, and hopefully one that you can apply into yours too. Gus, any final words of wisdom or advice for us?
Believe in yourself. Just generally. You got this.
Yeah. That's a strong set of words.
Yes, it
and
is.
one you would hope to hear from the fellow who's going to teach you improv.
Right.
A kind and gentle improv session you can look forward to. Gus, thank you again. For more great entrepreneurial wisdom and advice, join us on the Founded in FoCo podcast, and anywhere podcasts are found, you can find us. Also, in person, Fort Collins Senior Center, March 4th through 8th for Founded in FoCo. Can't wait to see you there. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm Nick Armstrong, and this is a Founded in FoCo podcast. For more great interviews like this one, join us at foundedinfoco.com.